What happens when a mayor's daughter thinks her father's title puts her above every law, every badge, and every officer on the road? This arrogant woman walked into my courtroom believing her family name would erase what she did, that money, influence, and a team of expensive lawyers could make a decorated state trooper's broken shoulder simply disappear. But when I forced her father to choose between protecting his daughter and protecting his integrity, what happened? Next silenced an entire courtroom and an entire city, she stood. They're looking at me like I was an inconvenience, like this was all beneath her, and she said to that trooper's face, "My father owns this state. You'll be filing unemployment by Monday." The room went cold, but what nobody in that courtroom knew, what even she didn't know, was that Mayor Gerald Hall was sitting in the back row in a plain gray suit, no aides, no press, watching his daughter dismantle everything he'd spent 30 years building. There was, and the decision he was about to make would break hearts, restore faith in justice, and prove that some parents love their principals more than they love protecting their children's worst moments. Before we go any further, less than 5% of you watching are actually subscribed. If you believe that no name, no title, and no family connection should ever put anyone above the law, hit that subscribe button right now. This story is going to spread, and you don't want to miss what comes next. It was a bright Tuesday afternoon, and I was preparing for what looked like a straightforward assault case. At my age, I've presided over thousands of cases, but something about this one felt different the moment the file landed on my desk. The victim was Trooper Marcus Webb, a 20-year veteran of the state police, twice decorated for valor. The defendant was 28-year-old Cassandra Hall, daughter of Mayor Gerald Hall, the most powerful elected official in this city. The case file told a story that made my stomach turn before I'd even finished the first page. 3 days before she walked into my courtroom, Cassandra Hall had been clocked doing 97 miles per hour in a 55 zone on State Route 9. Trooper Webb activated his lights and expected what any officer expects: a nervous driver, a reasonable exchange, a citation. What he got was something entirely different. The white Porsche pulled over slowly, too slowly. Webb stepped out and approached with the calm professionalism that had defined his entire career, measured, courteous, exactly by the book. But before he could reach the driver's window, the door swung open. Cassandra Hall didn't wait to be addressed. She stepped out of that car with the energy of someone who had never once been held accountable for anything in her life and had decided today would be no different. She pointed her finger in his face. She told him he had no idea who he was dealing with, that her father ran this city, that this stop was a mistake Trooper Webb was going to spend a long time regretting. Webb remained calm. He asked her to return to her vehicle. That's when she shoved him, both hands, full force, driving him hard into the side of his patrol car. Webb's shoulder took the full impact. He heard it tear before he felt it. He went down. Cassandra looked at him on the ground, got back into her Porsche, and drove away without a word. She left a twice-decorated 20-year veteran collapsed against his own vehicle on a public highway. His shoulder required surgery. He spent 3 days in the hospital. What Cassandra Hall did not know as she drove away that afternoon was that a motorist on the overpass above had filmed every second on a phone camera, and that Webb's own dashboard had captured every word she said before she put her hands on him. Every single word, including the ones that would define this entire case before it ever reached my courtroom. The motorist's video hit social media at 11:47 that night. By midnight, it had 50,000 views. By morning, it had 10 times that, and by the time the local news stations led with it at 6 o'clock a.m., the city had already made up its mind. The clip was only 43 seconds long, but it didn't need to be longer. You could see everything. You could see Webb's professional composure. You could see Cassandra's finger in his face. You could see the shove, clear, deliberate, unambiguous. And you could hear, captured perfectly on the dashboard audio, that law enforcement unions would later call the most damning 40 seconds of footage this city has ever produced. Exactly what she said before she did it. "My father owns this state. You'll be filing unemployment by Monday." Law enforcement unions released a statement. Before breakfast, veterans organizations followed by noon. By mid-afternoon, 3 city council members had gone on record demanding charges. The mayor's office issued a careful 2-sentence response that satisfied absolutely no one and seemed to confirm every suspicion people already had about how this would be handled. The comments under that statement were not kind. The hashtag ran for 4 straight days. Reporters camped outside the precinct, outside the courthouse, outside the mayor's office. Someone left a thin blue line flag and a get well card at the entrance to Trooper Webb's hospital floor, and by the next morning there were 200 more. People who had never met Marcus Webb in their lives drove across the city to leave them. The district attorney announced charges within 72 Hours, the speed at which that announcement came told you everything about the pressure the office was under. This was not a case anyone could quietly make disappear, not with that footage living rent-free on every phone in the state. By the morning of trial, my courtroom was packed in a way I hadn't seen in years. Reporters filled the press gallery shoulder to shoulder. Trooper Webb's fellow officers sat in uniform, still and silent in the rows behind the victim's bench. Court watchers who follow my cases had lined up before dawn, and there was an energy. In that room, a current running just beneath the surface, and that told me before a single word was spoken that this day was going to matter. I've been doing this long enough to read a person completely in the time it takes them to walk from the door to the defense table. Posture, pace, eyes, everything tells you something before. A single word is exchanged, and the moment Cassandra Hall walked through those courtroom doors, she told me everything I needed to know. She was dressed like she was attending a charity luncheon, cream blazer, silk blouse, heels that cost more than most people's monthly car payments. Her hair was perfect. Her composure was theatrical, the practiced calm of someone who had been coached extensively and had decided somewhere between the coaching and this moment that she simply wasn't going to take any of it seriously. She moved through that packed courtroom the way people move through spaces they believe were built for them. She passed Trooper Webb without a glance. He was sitting in the gallery in full uniform, his right arm still supported in a sling, his posture straight and dignified, clear as throat despite everything. She didn't slow down. She didn't look. Not a flicker of acknowledgement, not a trace of discomfort, nothing. And in that single moment of deliberate blindness, she told me more about her character than any testimony ever could. Behind her came 3 attorneys, her lead counsel. Richard Payne, one of the most expensive defense lawyers in the state, flanked by 2 junior associates carrying matching leather portfolios like props in a performance. Payne moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to making problems evaporate. Already scanning the room, already calculating, I watched all of it from the bench. I let them settle. I let the room breathe. I have a reputation for impartiality, and I guard it carefully. But I will tell you plainly that by the time Cassandra Hall pulled out her chair, adjusted her blazer, and surveyed my courtroom with an expression that could only be described as mild inconvenience, my patience was already running thin. I had read the case file. I had watched the footage. I had seen the hospital report and the surgical notes and the 3 witness statements, and I had watched that woman walk past a decorated officer she put in a hospital without a single moment of hesitation. My glasses came off before she even sat down.